Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are located or when you are watching this. My name is Eltjo van Gulik.
And I'm Gerjon Kunst.
And welcome to another episode of ONERECAP. Hey guys, a lot of people seem to really enjoy our recaps from the last Citrix Converge hackathon we decided to do. So we decided to treat you guys to a new episode. Between the two of us and the other guys at RawWorks, we really had a lot of fun recording these previous episodes. We got to speak to a lot of great folks in the community as well as for Citrix. So before we start, I really do want to thank you guys for watching and all of the wonderful comments that we got on our previous episode. Thank you so much. So today we got a very special episode because today we are here with one of the other Citrix hackathon winners in the form of Bridge Consulting. They got a very big delegation. We got Bridge's very own Gil Roberts and the rest of his team.
I'll do an introduction for everybody. So with us today is some of the people responsible behind that hackathon video, Alex Davis, Spencer D, and Mr. Alex Edelen. So we got a couple Alexes here, so we call it Edelen and Davis. Hassan and Sohal couldn't be with us today just for personal reasons. So I just want to give a shout out to them as well for their hard work. So we had a team of 5. I just did the commentary and the visioning, so I can't take a lot of credit, but yeah, you'll hear my voice across the top. So that's sometimes I just get defaulted to the credit, but it's not the case. On
awesome, that. Very nice to meet you guys. Very glad you could make it all on the show. Let's take a little trip back to memory lane, along memory lane. Citrix Converge at time of this recording is, what is it, 2 months ago? Yeah, 2 months ago, something like that.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. How did you guys enjoy the Citrix Converge?
I'll speak first, and then I'll let everybody else chime in. This is my 3rd Converge. We were there at the original one in 2019 when we actually got to be there in person, which was a shame that we all couldn't get back to Santa Clara. It was a wonderful time at Citrix, but having the spring and then this fall virtual for obviously good reasons, it was enjoyable to have the sessions and versus the spring, because that's kind of the frame of reference for me, because I just haven't been on to a lot of virtual conferences until this year. It was definitely, both of them were well produced, but this one this fall was exceptional. I've been to other conferences for other products, and I think Citrix did probably the best out of all of them, particularly this one this fall, and the way that they rolled the content out from there. So that was kind of my personal take on it. I'll let the rest of my team speak.
Maybe Douglas?
Did you say Davis or sorry?
Douglas.
Yeah. Well, so I had never been to a Converge before, so this was my first experience with it. It was online, so that was really interesting. Gil does like to talk about the in-person Converge all the time, so I was kind of missing out on it, going to Santa Clara and stuff like that. But it was really interesting to learn a lot of new things about Citrix and just all the different techniques that you can use in your everyday life. So
it was cool. Alex Davis, then
Yeah, so it was also my first Citrix Converge. I really liked the virtual aspect of it. Also, just that they put everything up online, because a lot of times I had conflicts. But being able to go back and look at all the material, I thought was great, because then you really get the full experience. And yeah, just seeing what's coming up in the pipeline with Citrix, what they're trying to do, and what their vision is. It helped me see all that a little bit better for the future, and to see ideas that would be good for the next hackathon. Just trying to think up new ideas, new innovative things that we could do.
Cool.
Yeah, small question, because you guys were participating on the hackathon. Did any of you also have a session to host?
I did a session with Sarah and Daniel from Phases, Daniel Horn. I did just kind of like an intro to Podio, and then Daniel, who's kind of like the godfather of Podio, he's one of the original, one of the OGs of the OGs. Kind of went in and talks about kind of the value and reasons. I just kind of did a quick presentation on that. That was it from us. We've done other things in the past, but we really wanted to focus on this hackathon. And as you can tell, just the variety of things that we wanted to bring to the experience.
I can imagine it took you a lot of time. Yeah. Dominique, how did you enjoy the Converge?
Loved it. It was a lot of fun. Cheering on the team. That's kind of all I did, was cheer on the team. I'm not really a technical person, but yeah, they did great. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Now, Dominique, he helped host our International Podio Developer Meetup. I'd be amiss without giving Podio and that a plug. So for him, we did a wonderful job. I think we had, 50 or 60 unique attendees. It was the first one that we've ever tried. Usually Jordan over at Smartphone does the European meetup, and then we hosted the first North American meetup in conjunction with the first Converge last year in 2019. All right, I guess it's been over a year now. Yeah, wow. So
yeah. Oh, wow.
So we did those together. Obviously, with everything that's going on in the pandemic, we just decided to try to just combine the two and just invite everybody into one virtual conference. Dominique, which I didn't get to introduce just yet, was able to host that. Dominique, you attended some of the Converge sessions, but the rest of the team was the ones that actually got hit the rubber to the road. Both Dominique and I were just the pretty faces and the voice. Dominique's got the pretty face. I got the pretty voice. That's how it is.
Okay. Oh yeah, good to know. And then Alex.
Mr. Edelen, yes.
Yeah. So this was my first Converge as well, but I've been to a lot of other in-person conferences for different industries. And I really think that Citrix's use of Slack to allow all the participants to interact with each other was a help for the virtual conference, because that's one of the things when you use conferences, it's not just the seminars and the sit downs, it's interacting with all the like individuals that are doing the same thing that you are, just in another area. So I think their use of that to facilitate it was a big help in the virtual environment.
Yeah, for me that really stood out, because it makes a virtual conference much more personal than it usually is, because it usually is very one way. You have the presenter presenting the topic and the receiver that receives that. But this way it was much more interactive, and I really like that aspect of it. And I hope they'll do the same way, the next virtual conference.
Absolutely.
It was versus the in-person conference, that Slack really allowed for that kind of casual meeting of people, right? Like that, because let's be honest, that's most of the conference is just kind of like hanging out in the area, and somebody's like, oh, hey, I'm X, what are you doing? What are you up to? Right? Like that's a lot of the great connections of these conferences, is just those casual connections. So having the Slack there, you're right, Mr. Edelen. That's to a huge advantage. We were able to do some on the session that I did. We were able to do a little Q&A in Slack, and some people ask questions and actually have that kind of live feel to it, which we tried to have some of that in the International Podio meetup, developer meetup. It was a little rushed, so we had to, because it was kind of like, are we going to do this or not? If so, let's do it, right? So that's something that we learned, because ours came before this past Converge. So that's something that we learned. It was like, hey, we got to have this next time for ourselves.
Yeah. And one of the cool things is they keep the Slack channel open, so it's still accessible for everyone. So it's really cool if you want to catch up with someone that you spoke back then or wanted to speak to. It's really cool just to connect. It's still possible.
That's actually the same Slack that they set up for the November 2019 one, or October 2019 one. So
exactly.
It's carried on, and they've just been able to add people. I did like how they opened it up to the public this time, and I thought it was really cool that they had a student category for the hackathon. I think that's so important to bring in people that are new and talented, and Citrix isn't a household name, right? So. It's really great exposure for them. And we here at Brickbridge, a lot of our people here are from the local universities.
Mm-hmm.
So it's important for them to learn these, I'll call it, especially on the virtualization side, kind of less sexy technologies, but where the direction of Citrix is going is trying to grow this developer group. I mean, the Converge in 2019, the fall of 2019, was their very first Converge ever and very first developer conference ever. And Citrix has been around since the late 80s. So this is a great way, bringing the universities and having them involved is a great way for them to expand that developer group. I mean, that's who you want to target, especially with newer software categories like employee experience, which is Citrix Workspace with Intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
So
So talking about the hackathon, you guys had a massive entry for the Converge hackathon. I really had to watch the recording twice to catch all the integrations that you guys made, and I even heard that you had to speed up the video to get everything done within the time frame.
Yeah, so I'll give a little backstory on it. I didn't code it. I'm not the technical guy. I'm the crazy guy in front of the whiteboard, and then these gentlemen have to deal with me and what I ask of them and bring it into reality. But basically what we wanted to do was kind of showcase two main concepts. And I talk about it in the commentary. And you're right. If anybody goes back and watches that, kind of, if you want to slow it down a little bit, we had to speed up the time. There's some sections you'll see where we had to speed up. Like when the virtual desktop loaded, there was a few extra seconds like, hey, we all know what a virtual desktop loading up looks like. Go ahead and fast forward that part. But we try to pack in. We had 37 actions. Now, some of those were like dismiss actions. Some of them were actual button actions. But basically, those clicks, which had some level of value to the user, was all packed into that 5 minutes. Again, watch it again. You'll see that there's stuff in there that Sohal was doing the mouse clicking part. He was on our team back in the spring. It was myself and him that did that demo, but he was clicking through those, and you'll see where I can't, the commentary can't keep up with as much productivity as that he's doing with the mouse. And that just speaks to what Workspace with Intelligence is. Like you're knocking work out faster than you can even talk about the work that you're knocking out. So we wanted to do two main things, and I highlighted these a little bit in the commentary, which is one, we wanted to show time to value, particularly, a new employee sitting down at their desk and becoming immediately productive, because we know we're all human beings, right? And we know that first kind of day to a week or even 2 weeks or maybe a month in some really complicated roles, it takes forever for employees to become fully productive, right? Because there's the culture element, there's the new software element, and then even if it's software they've used before, obviously every company configures their stuff differently. So there's this time to value of the employee from an employer's perspective, and we wanted to go like, look, we drop this guy right into the deep end of the pool, and they're able to start working right away. So that was one concept that we wanted to point into. Another concept, we touched on it back in the spring with that hackathon video, but we wanted to really start bringing some of the human elements into the Workspace with Intelligence experience, which is where we came up with a Spotify and New York Times. Both Mr. Davis and Spencer here worked on those, as well as some of the other just kind of work functions, e.g. innovations, additions, and just show that it's like it's more than just employees knocking out work, that there's a human being sitting there in front of the computer, and we wanted to break that fourth wall, right? Where it's not just the employer giving the employee a easier or better way to work, which it is. But there's so much productivity gain. We wanted to give a few minutes back to the employee. And we've seen it can save up to 28% per hour. That's about 15 minutes out of every hour we can give back to the employer, give back to the employee. And we're like, okay, let's give 10 minutes to the employer, but let's take 5 minutes and give that back to the employee. Because if they're in a normal work environment, people don't just sit down and they don't not go to the bathroom. They don't not eat. Right? Like they go and talk at the water cooler, they do other things. Hey, let's be honest, people check their Facebook and stuff like that while they're at work. I mean, they're human beings. We're all human beings. The executives do it. We do it. Employees do it. Mid-level managers, everybody does this. Because we're picking up so much productivity, let's take 5 minutes and give it back to the employee for being more productive as a reward, right? So a couple of reward style systems and kind of gamifying and doing prizes inside of the feed. It was kind of the concept that we wanted to broach. So in those, we gave them some, or what we call employer ordained distractions. The employers still control the distraction. So they're like, okay, New York Times, we could section it out so that if they're like a financial person, that they get financial news. Well, that helps the person, give them a educational distraction that they're not, sitting their head down, grinding away. But it also allows them to be a little more well-rounded. So when they're talking to a client, they're making a sale, maybe they're in a service department and a client calls in, that they don't just sound like a robot. They're like, oh, hey, did you see the New York Times article? Did you see the Wall Street Journal article or something like that? Or if they're in IT, did you see, insert famous IT publication in there? You see that article that came out today? And then you can start the two human beings, the customer or the client or another department or something, and the person that's using Workspace of Intelligence. We're kind of like letting the robots be robots and letting the humans be humans, right? Also, the rewards, like with the Uber Eats, it's his first day, so that was kind of a nice way for us to embed something in that feed to reward that employee for being there and getting through the stuff on the first day. We take our employees out to lunch typically on their first days, so which is pretty common. But you could also extend that idea into, look, they've knocked out so much work out of this queue. Here's a coupon. Here's a $20 Amazon gift card. Here's Uber Eats or whatever, because you've been so productive today. And we can actually just gamify that feed. And the original idea, and then I'll be quiet after this, is we're giving so much productivity back, and it's going to be on the phones, right, on your tablets, on your desktop, and people are going to, the first month or so, they're going to be really happy that they're able to do their job more easily. But after like 4 to 6 weeks, it's going to ultimately, they're going to see that notification on their phone and go, more work, right? So we wanted to start embedding kind of prizes in there and that randomness. And there's been many psychological studies. It's not what makes feeds addicting in Instagram and Facebook and those kinds of things is the randomness, not always getting something in your Facebook feed that you like, but getting stuff that you don't care about and things that you do care about in a random order. So obviously getting stuff you don't ever like is bad, but also getting stuff that you like all the time is bad. That the addictiveness, quote unquote, comes from the mixture of both. So if they're always seeing their cell phone and the Workspace with Intelligence notification goes off, they know it's work. But if sometimes that's a $5 or $10 gift card to Amazon, they're going to check that thing every single time, right? Let's be honest, because again, the first, there's a honeymoon period where the employees are going to be really happy about this stuff, and then they're going to realize, oh crap, I'm just doing more work, right? It's more efficient, but that means they're just going to pile more onto me. So that's the two things we wanted to add to that feed, which is the like ordained distraction, so that it gives kind of this nice kind of randomness to the feed, and then prizes to keep them coming back to the well, to take a look at that and to do work and be productive. And it works out for both the employer and the employee and the customers and everybody else that's involved.
And that is actually the one thing I really liked in your entry. It's not just the sheer amount of integration that you guys made, but also the way you guys mixed, let's say, business with pleasure into the feed and worked that in. I really like that idea. And I also saw a very good session from Sarah Hoeg, by the way, who really was going on about the how you can intertwine those two presumably very different parts of your life into the Citrix workspace, business and pleasure.
Well, and it comes from an idea that, look, people sit on their couch, especially right now with a lot of work from home, but we'll get back to the new normal at some point. But I think that the workplace has been, we're not going back to the way it was in 2019, right? I'm sure there's going to be a lot more liquid space that's occurring where people are coming to meet purposefully. And it's instead of some work from home and then mostly in the office. I think we're going to see, and we're doing that here at Brickbridge. We had a large office everybody used to come to, and now we just have this small space and we just rotate teams. You know, they come in once a week. We were work from home once a week. Now we're work from home 4 days a week, right? And then in the office 1 day a week as we've come back to work. So we wanted to capture that dynamic, and that begins to blur the work-life balance, right? So yeah, let's put that personal stuff into the feed. It's almost like they have to now work inside of an Instagram feed for 8 hours, right? For good reason, because you can do a lot more through that kind of work queue. But if they're going to be in there for so long, I mean, you know,
and I can imagine, because there's a reason why those feeds work in LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, all those social media applications have a built-in feed. So the idea behind it, we know it works because we use it every day in our personal lives.
Right. Yeah, and people are on that thing. I mean, some people are on there as much as their job, right? Some people go home, sit on the couch.
24/7.
Yeah, you know, they sit and do their work. And I think Citrix nailed it when they said, well, people get off work in their business applications, which look like dinosaurs, not because they're bad. I mean, the software does the job, right? It's the value is there. Look, no one wants to go back to pencil and paper, right? So obviously the software is good and there for a reason. However, you get that wanting, right? Because you sit down and then you fire up an Instagram, which they've spent, you know, untold millions of dollars to get that feed just right and get it addictive. You know, that is the application, is the UI, right? You know, putting people's posts and all that. There's not a lot. I'm sure it's very complicated. I'm oversimplifying, but you know, ultimately what the person is using and the reason that Instagram is worth so much and does so much to Facebook is because of the way that feed is constructed and how that they're putting those cards in that feed. I mean, that is the moneymaker of that software. Citrix is spot on saying we need to take that kind of experience and bring it over to the business apps, because they're working with these what seem to be dinosaur business apps for most of the day, and then they're going home and experiencing, you know, a much more thought out and richer is a great way. I mean, it's just better, right? It's a better software experience. You know, we talk about video games a lot around the office because that's software. Now it's an entertainment software, but it's still software, and you got all the pretty interfaces and the way that they do their menu systems, and you know, you pull up your inventory in your video game and it's all well laid out and all this kind of stuff, because they spent hours and hours and hours of testing and just dealing with that UI UX thing. And then you go to business software and you're like, why do I got to click 18,000 times to do something?
Yeah, and it's very funny that you
anyway, go ahead.
Very funny that you mentioned that, because especially in games, user experience is key, right?
Yes.
If user experience sucks, you're not going to enjoy the game. But the same holds true also for business application on a completely different level.
Still human beings. They just, you know, and what's gotten worse, and especially as the workforce has changed, the demographics of the workforce has changed. I grew up on video games, right? I'm 37. I had Atari for a very short amount of time and right into the NES. And even some of those games back in the late 80s are better laid out than modern business software.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's insane to think that, you know, I guess it's just because it feels stuffy and you just need to, you know, hey, I'm just here to use it to make money or something. and they just don't care. It's like, oh, well, the employees have to use it because that's a part of their job. And it's like, wait a minute, human beings buy software. You guys write software, or we write software. Who sits down, who buys it? Well, it's a human being. And the juxtaposition is that same executive who's now in a different age demographic is just like us, where they've been using this beautifully laid out and UI software in their personal lives, and now they're making purchasing decisions on the experience of that user interface, right? So why are we still, why is it still a million clicks to do something that we can just do in Workspace with one click, right? Like there's who's determining these rules that business software has to be miserable? Like, no, who are they? Because I like to drag them out of their office and give them the what for, because there's no reason for it, right? There's still human beings. They have to use it, you know, until all the robots replace us. We have to deal with human beings to do the work, you know. So let's not make this any harder than it needs to be. Yeah. So I think Citrix is spot on with that.
Absolutely. So I had a question. You for the hackathon, you created 37 integrations. Did you create them all especially for the hackathon, or were some of them modified from existing
well, we had
apps?
37 actions. I wish we had 37 integrations. These guys, there would be probably like twice as many people here. They spent the full 2 weeks getting that stuff done. But no, so we did, and correct me if I'm wrong, it was still double digits total, and we did not show everything off. Basically, everybody, we had a team of 5. Basically, everybody did either a couple different ones or a couple integrations inside of one. I think one I did not get to talk about in the video, and I will answer your question directly, is Mr. Edelen's LinkedIn one. And this was we just ran out of time to talk about it. You know, from a salesperson's perspective, and both Edelen and I, we're former bankers, so we know about financial sales and relationship selling. You know, you have LinkedIn, which is a wonderful sales tool, but it's got a feed, right? And it's going to have all kinds of stuff, and LinkedIn wants you to show them your ads and all that other kind of stuff, and that's LinkedIn. We get it, right? We totally get it. That's why they're around. However, as a salesperson, I mean, and in the employer of a salesperson, that feeds everything. And you might only be targeting like 5 or 10 people, but if you have like 1,000 connections because you're a good salesperson, that thing gets jammed up, right? Because it's going to have everything in there. People you're following, people that you're connected with, people that you're, you know, news articles and advertisements and all that. And we're like, what's a great way to make a sale? Well, connect with a person personally. So, and Mr. Edelen, I'll let you expand. Basically, we were like, let's watch LinkedIn so that when I think our example persona was Anita Cloud, and when she posts on LinkedIn, we can bring that post into Workspace with Intelligence, just her, right? Because that's a sales target or a current client or a high value client, or maybe a high value internal person. And then you can actually interact with them right there in the feed, because obviously, as from the employer's perspective, that's helping the sales process. That's helping with that relationship if they're a current client. Yeah, we want the salesperson to interact with them, and you know, social media is legitimate in a business process these days, particularly LinkedIn. So we just wanted to kind of like highlight that, not the whole LinkedIn feed. You know, the Workspace with Intelligence kind of lends itself where you go, oh man, I can recreate a lot of things, and it's like, no, let's just surface what's priority. If they need to go into the system of record, or they need to go into LinkedIn, or wherever they need to go, then they can dig down to it. So actually, Mr. Allen, why don't we talk about that, since we didn't give it its great due in the video? It's in there. You'll see it happen, but we just don't have time to talk about it.
Yeah, one of our big ideas with LinkedIn was to integrate it with something like your internal sales CRM to target specific people that you want to be notified when they are active on LinkedIn. And then you can interact with them via like or comment directly from Workspace without having to switch over. Additionally, the LinkedIn API is extremely robust too. It's got tons of offerings out there. some of it's trapped behind a paywall on LinkedIn side based on your account, but the possibilities with things like LinkedIn and then integrating it back to some of your other applications are absolutely endless. There's so much out there that you can do with it. But just being able to target those individual users that you want to keep an eye out, whether they're new clients and you just want to let them know that, hey, like, we see what you're doing, we want to let you know that we're here to help. Or if you're targeting someone from a sales perspective, like, this would be a great opportunity, let's keep an eye on what they're doing. Workspace would allow you to filter some of those things out so that you don't have to actively monitor it. Workspace will do that for you.
Or get distracted in the feed, right? Because there's so much other stuff. Now the employees spend a half hour on LinkedIn and they haven't gotten any productivity, right? So that exemplifies that employer ordained distraction. It's like, look, we want you on LinkedIn because you can do relationship work on there, but LinkedIn is built to be distracting. It's built to arrest your attention, which is not always good for productivity. So how do we balance the two worlds? Well, let's read. You get your salesperson, you get assigned a lead. Let's read that from your CRM, your chosen CRM system, which we used Podio, big plug. But we saw that Anita had been assigned to our Jerry Riggs, our guy in the hackathon video, and that when she posted a little bit later on in the video, that her post popped up, and he could begin to interact with them, like them, do comments, as Mr. Ellen said. We can. There's a whole bunch more, right? For a hackathon video, we're just doing little samplers, especially given the quantity that we had in there. Just different little gateways or things. We are going to have all of our stuff. I wanted to answer partially your original question is, did we do this just for the hackathon, or did we do this and just stuff that we already have? All of it was original for the hackathon. So everything that you've seen in there was original stuff. There was some of the back to work items, which we worked on over the summer, which is on the Citrix Ready marketplace for people to be able to inquire about. But we're also putting everything that we can from the hackathon over. I think only Toggle isn't going to make it, the way that it doesn't scale. Is that right, Mr. Davis? Spencer, I think you guys work on Toggle. It doesn't scale.
Really. But we
so
tried.
From a technical standpoint, were there any pitfalls or caveats or things that you ran into that you had to work around building some of the integrations?
I'll let the team take that. I did not have the pleasure this time of actually getting my hands dirty. So actually, I think Mr. Davis and Spencer, you two probably really got into the most, because you did the total number of like different softwares, right? Like Uber Eats, Spotify, New York Times, and Toggle. So maybe juxtapose, because Toggle gave us some problems, especially post hackathon, because we had some inquiries. We want to get into the Citrix Ready marketplace, and it's not looking like that one's going to make it over there. There might be a custom one-off thing for people. I'll let you all kind of talk about the challenges with that.
Yeah, so some of the challenges was just learning how to use Podio and Citrix Workspace with intelligence to connect, because some of the APIs weren't as clean and as thorough as you would like them to be. So just finding apps that would be great for either business or for the rewards, as we were talking about, with APIs that would fit, where you could actually get some functionality that people would actually use and care about, and that would improve productivity. That was a big part of it. And just also working with Sohal to get everything configured correctly. Since this was our first time doing it, we really needed help, quite a bit of help at the beginning to figure out what was going on. But it seemed to come out well in the end.
Yeah, I'll say from a technical,
I don't know if you have anything else.
Yeah, one of the toughest things was getting the first integration done. because you go through the classes and everything, and during the classes they give you instructions on how to build these integrations. Actually, putting those instructions into action and actually building it on your own is definitely the hardest step. And then I'll touch on Toggle. So Toggle was probably one of our first integrations that we built for the hackathon, and then we've been trying to get it ready for the marketplace, the Citrix Ready marketplace, but it just doesn't scale to like personalized workspaces and things like that. So running into different things post hackathon has definitely been an interesting issue for us to deal with.
Yeah, we've had a lot of obviously interest from the video on the different functionalities, and we'll have some stuff released. Particularly Spotify, New York Times has done really well. The Uber Eats we're still working on. But I think you guys highlight a great point, which is when we do these micro app integrations, it all comes down to the API of what we're integrating. Citrix, the Sappho team before and everything else, they've done a great job to make these things play well with others. So any companies and developers, Citrix developers watching this video, I want to make very clear that it's very easy from the Citrix perspective to do these things. It all comes down if the other kid will play well. So,
and I know Citrix, and especially Sarah Hoag, is really working on getting the integrations done and compatibility between micro apps and Podio to play nice with each other, much and much more. And that will broaden the things that we can do with micro apps much more in the future.
Absolutely. We talked about that in our spring hackathon quite a bit, because our spring hackathon video, we won the business value category. And we did everything. At the very end of the video, we reveal everything that we did in there is within Podio, with the exception of the telephone system itself. Obviously, Podio is not a telephone system. We had to get Jordan Fleming and his group's smartphone to do that, which is a Podio native voice over IP phone. So basically, we had to just go to the cousin to get the phone, the phone magic to work. But I mean, there has been some really cool stuff being able to use Podio as kind of like a micro SOR to the micro apps. So you need both for the magic to happen. Obviously, inside a workspace with intelligence, the micro apps are there. That's its huge attraction. But if you need to make something quickly to back that micro app, and let's say it's an HR piece of software, and you don't want to write the $100,000 check for Workday or some of these other monolith, big softwares. There's a lot of implementation, a lot of seat costs, and all that kind of stuff. You can go over to Podio and just kind of build something very quickly. And honestly, what we found with some of our clients is they may have a Workday or these monoliths, but they didn't pay for portions of it to be set up, or it's $250 an hour to kind of expand some things out in implementation. If you go directly to them like a Salesforce, we could just use Podio to just kind of like stop the gap, right? Like, okay, well, let's just do this for PTO requests. Like, okay, Workday has it, and I'm just using them as an example. I don't want to beat them up too much. Workday's a great piece of software, but let's say they didn't pay for it or didn't buy that option or whatever. Inside of the package, we can just kind of do a stopgap with Podio, build a little quick PTO system, and then if they like it, they find out there's a lot of use, then management or people that are directing these investments can go to a Workday or something and go ahead and go, we're using this little thing. It's it's kind of a Swiss Army knife, so to speak, the little toothpick in there and all that. And does it do the job exactly? Or those scissors? It's always that little scissors that are in those knives. It kind of works, but it doesn't at the same time. Now that we know that people are using it, we feel confident in going to Workday and spending the X thousands of dollars to get that set up. And then we just pull Podio off, put that integration right in, just kind of screws in, screws out, right? And I think that's the beauty of it, is companies can use Podio to either fill gaps or test to see if their employee user populations will use particular things before they go and invest.
Yeah, so kind of low cost POC.
It's great to do proofs of concepts and MVPs. I think that the lean methodology and the agile methodology is starting to really infiltrate management and executive strategy thinking, to go, let's just test it a little bit. Because I mean, how many projects, even internal stuff for employees, which you can yell at them to use it, but they still don't use it, right? Or they just email each other, right? Like, and I think it comes down to, and you guys touched on this, we've been touching on this the whole time, is there's human beings involved, right? If it doesn't matter how much you spend on a piece of software, if no one at the company uses it, it's completely worth it. That thing could be absolute magic. And if people just don't identify with it and use it, even if you yell at them because they're employees, it's not going to work. Ultimately, it's going to fail, right? So why jump into something really large when you have, especially if it's a culture shift or it's a brand new functionality or business line to a company? Why you don't have to jump into the deep end anymore, right? You can put out some sampler stuff, see if it works, and then you could sometimes the sampler may be all that's needed. Maybe that covers like 80-90% of the use case, and okay, corner cases, just email somebody, right? So a lot of times we've done where the MVP is kind of like what's needed. And that's it, because somebody thinks, oh, we need this, and this, and it comes down to like the employees are like, we only really need PTO requests. I don't need all this other stuff that goes along with it. Because let's be honest, the most frontline employees get trained on something, and they just don't care about a lot of the accessory stuff. It just doesn't. They just don't. They get it during that first week or two of training, and then 3 years down the road, they're emailing the HR person for something. And the HR person is like, well, don't you remember your training? It's like, well, it's 3 years ago and the software is different and I never use it, right? Like, it comes down to honesty and transparency amongst ourselves and amongst these groups, the employee groups and management and middle management, for everybody to just kind of put the guns down a little bit and go, you know what, let's do what works, right? And if this isn't working, why do we keep doing it? Workspace
makes sense to me.
Yeah, no, I mean, this isn't groundbreaking stuff. It's just like, hey, there's human beings involved. Let's do the things that the human beings want to do. Mm-hmm. And software has become so, I want to say inexpensive as if it's cheap, like it's free, but it's the costs have come down, especially when you look at stuff like Podio and Workspace with Intelligence, where you can get kind of the off the shelf but customizable feel. It's like 70% less than it used to be, right?
And again, that's the whole trend, with the whole low code, no code. It's a new trend, and it's really enabling much more people to develop software instead of the old world where there were guys with long hair and beards, and I know might not be the one to tell about that, but it will allow much more people to develop software and to develop smart things for businesses. So we're almost approaching the end of the hour, and we're already very long. And the one thing I noticed that I wanted to talk about is a little bit different, a little bit more personal. Well, in your video, I saw that you had the Spotify integration. I saw that you had Metal Monday.
Yeah.
So, both Kane and I are massive metal fans, and
fantastic.
Tell us a little bit about Metal Monday, because I'm really intrigued.
Yeah, so we're a fun office environment, as you can tell by the gentleman on the call. We're a younger office environment. We do recruit exclusively from the universities around here. We also do career changers. Not all of us are young and free and living in the wild, so. So we do Code Louisville, which are like people that have never developed before. And I don't know if the viewers caught this or you guys caught this. Everybody on this call, that hackathon was their first experience developing into Citrix Workspace with Intelligence. So, and we are designing a way for new Citrix developers new to Citrix, I should say. I guess that's one and the same, right? To be able to get up to speed quickly. So they, Mr. Davis, Edelen, even Dominique and Dee have only been with us since September, 1st of September, and then the hackathon's in November. So we had to take them from, they didn't know what Citrix was, right? They kind of heard of the names, but didn't know what it was, all the way up to being able to produce a hackathon video like that in less than 90 days, right? And I think the training materials and the microapp certification, shameless plug for that. If if you're listening to this, you're wanting to get into this, it's a great way to get people started is through that. And then training is very affordable. It's 3 days. But you can get people quickly into the Citrix ecosystem, and you can see very rapidly the value that they can create. Now, I'll come back to Metal Mondays. I'm a metalhead myself, so I got the long hair and the beard. So it's something that we have a lot of fun with around the office, and we try to bring some personality, and we let that shine through. We even do that with their clients. Sometimes it takes some of the our stuffier business clients off guard, where it's like, oh my goodness, you can actually have fun at work, and it's like, yeah, there's no one that says you can't. So especially if you're the executive team, you're the ones that maybe you all need to calm down. So let your employees have a good time, especially. I think it's even more important right now with everything that's going on and everybody having to stay at home, that there's some personality of the company and the people that work there coming through. And we're so reliant on technology at this point, particularly with all the remote work, that you can feel like you're just like another algorithm in the software. And it's like, I'm just clicking buttons. I'm doing all this stuff in these esoteric systems only because they just haven't gotten rid of me yet, right? And it can feel like that because we've all become isolated in our homes. There's not the water cooler there anymore and the fun times. And we miss that as a company ourselves. That's why when things started to calm down, that we started bringing people back 1 day a week and just rotating teams. A lot of stuff can get done through these software sets, Slack and all that. And we're more connected than ever via technology, but what's missing is the culture and personality, which is really the relationships between human beings. And doing something fun like Metal Mondays and throwing out a classic playlist and letting people rock out and that kind of stuff is just, hey, it's fun, right? And it spurs conversation. People get to chat about it in Slack, and from an ownership and management standpoint, you want to see that because that's what really bonds teams. Because let's be honest, it's not all unicorns and rainbows. There are going to be those times where it's 2 a.m. and we're doing a product release and the client's mad. Everybody's tired and upset. They need to have that culture, those fun times to fall back on, because everybody's going to start yelling at each other. We're human beings. We have emotions, right? It's 2 a.m. Everybody's tired. They need to have that frame of reference that tomorrow that they can have a fun conversation about a music list, right? And to let them get through the stressful times because you're giving them happy and relief times. And it goes back, I think we've come full circle now to these employer ordained distractions and the prizes inside the feed, which is addressing people at multiple levels. So that when it's the live bullets are coming and it's a hard time and there's lots of stress, that it doesn't cause people to leave your company. It doesn't cause people to hate each other past the stressful time, right? That there's just more to the relationship to fall back on rather than just these adversarial pieces, right? And because a lot of times that stressful stuff is highly temporary. It's a product release. It's gonna suck, right? It's gonna, because you're gonna. Obviously, it always works in the development, but as soon as you push it into production, everything goes crazy. It doesn't matter how much you test the dang thing. QA. We do development and then QA and then release, and there's still whatever reason, as soon as that software starts taking live action, all the users are gonna find new and interesting ways that you missed or didn't do. So, we wanted to have more cultural elements. And I'll end on this, which is there was an article that came out, the death of the ping pong table, right, at the offices. And we had a ping pong table. We don't have one now, and ours died as well. And we're like, what are we going to replace that with? Because, I got to be honest, even as an owner, I miss the sounds of the ping pong ball going back and forth across that table, because I knew it was employees and management and other people bonding, so that when the hard times came, that they knew that they could rely on each other. And that's why we wanted to try to bring something like a Spotify in that is culturally focused on something like that. So We have some
That's
cool
something.
stuff to come. I'll tease it out a little bit, but we got some really interesting things that we're working on right now that kind of really take those paths and expand upon them and those kinds of things. So excellent.
Cool.
Awesome.
So, Eltjo, we also need a Spotify playlist then for RawWorks.
Yeah, we do, and I saw some pretty nice stuff coming on. I saw Iron Maiden, Black Sabbath, Judas Priest, Megadeth.
Mr. Davis, was that you that put that particular Monday together? I think that was, wasn't it?
That was me.
Yeah, well, let me then congratulate you on your great taste of music.
Respect. Yeah.
We have a good time. We have a good time around here. We do some other things. We have Throwback Thursdays for the '80s stuff. I'm a child of the '80s, so I got.
So am I. Yeah.
Some of that great stuff, especially Rat and some of the other ones. I remember having the cassette tape. And the cassette player didn't have rewind. I'm going to date myself. You could only fast forward, right? So you can listen to the song. Of course, you want to listen to the same song like 100 times.
Yeah.
To the chagrin of your parents. So you have to, pull the tape back out, turn it around, put it back in, fast forward it.
Yeah.
That's reverse on the other side of the tape.
Mhm.
Right? Put it back on, and of course, you're in the middle of the song, so you got to do it again until you get to the front of the song and listen all the way through. So, look, that's a user experience.
Oh my.
They just put a rewind button.
Technology's really come quite far from rewinding cassette tapes back with a pencil, right?
Via fast forward.
Yeah.
It's hard to explain sometimes.
It is, especially for the younger audience.
Yeah, that is. Well, that's kind of what our motivation and spirit behind that hackathon video. I would be remiss because they mentioned it during that. You guys probably should have won based on just the aesthetics. We were very impressed. We've watched your all's videos several times. I told them when it came out, I was like, you guys, everybody needs to see this. They're doing the making it really pretty. So we have to up our game on the next hackathon. You guys are going to get us on the way that those menus look. I love having the images and a lot of those other things inside of that. I think that Citrix has noticed both of our works. And are really starting to understand that kind of what they have in their hands there. And I think the Reich acquisition is really kind of starting to gear towards more of these visual elements and the prettiness that the Reich interfaces come with. So I'm really excited what we'll be able to do when we get our hands into that.
And I think that'll keep us both on our toes then to deliver the best possible videos for the next hackathon as well. Yeah. And actually on that bombshell, I really wanted to thank all of the viewers for watching today. And if you're listening to the podcast, thank you so much for listening. Also, before we end this, a massive shout out to Gil and the other guys of BrickBridge for taking the time to talk to us on everything from personal stuff to metal playlists, to micro apps, to Reich, to everything Citrix related. So thank you very much, guys. Take care, stay safe, and see you guys on the flip side.
Thank you so much for having us on. Have a good one.
Yep, have a good one.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.